For a person who can say Germany and Japan are neighbors, you can expect anything. These groups are raised, protected, and supported by the Pak army. After having banned, lifted all the charges that you placed against them, released everybody, discussed the issue in parliament, and you say they are still banned. So what are they banned for? If you agree to all their demands, doesn't make sense. Now Imran is now being told there is a reliever for you ready. The Pak government is nowhere in the talks, but they are jumping on Article 370 because there's nothing else. What was Bajwa's statement? He says we're not bothered about Article 370. It has nothing to do. The Pak government is nowhere in the talks, but they are jumping on Article 370 because there's nothing else. What was Bajwa's statement? He says we're not bothered about Article 370. It has nothing to do. Afghanistan is going to go into the doldrums the moment the US pulls out. It's heading for a civil war. How long more can you? I mean, what else is left for you to give other than a major asset? You may have to at some stage hand over Karachi to China or something. At the rate at which they're heading into trouble. There is a rogue element within the Pak ISI. There is no doubt about it. There are many within the Pak army itself who are aligned to these militant groups. So the head of actually Pakistan has dumped all those within India who thought he would come to their aid.
Hello and welcome to Dev Talks. Today I'm proud to present to you once again after a while Major General Harsha Kakkar. Major General Kakkar was commissioned into the Indian Army in June 1979 into the Regiment of the Artillery. During his military service, he held a variety of appointments in every part of the country from J&K in the north and as well as parts of the east. He was the head of department in strategic studies in the College of Defense Management, where he wrote extensively on futuristic planning and enhancing joint operations. He has served as part of the United Nations peacekeeping force in Mozambique as well. Today, he is an avid Pakistan and China watcher, and he writes extensively on his blog, the link of which I will be adding in my description for those of you who want to read. Thank you, sir, for joining me to discuss the state of Pakistan today.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I've been following it for a long time.
Yes, I think a lot of us really enjoy reading your tweets as well as you catch them really, in very, very soft places. And that is something that I've noticed, sir. Sir, let me ask you, what is the reason behind this whole flux that is happening in Pakistan? That's the first part of my question, because everything was going peace and smooth, and suddenly the entire infrastructure, so as to say, of the establishment and the civil society is up in arms. Was this something like this predicted by anybody?
You're talking about the TLP and the other
Yes.
violence which has been happening in Pak.
Yes, sir.
You see, a large part of the violence or the movements that take place within Pak are those which are raised, these groups are raised, protected, and supported by the Pak army. Whether you look at the People's Democratic Movement, which is formed by a combination of three parties, suddenly you found the PPP walking out. You had the TLP violence, which took place when Nawaz Sharif was there. The army ISI chief brokered the peace and he signed on the peace agreement. It led to a minister in the Nawaz Sharif government backing out. There are also videos of a Pak Major General handing 1,000 rupee notes. The same organization came up against Imran. Again, the army brokered the peace. Immediately after the peace, for some reason, the creator of the organization, Kazim Rizvi, died. So his son took over. Now, there were also reports flowing in from Pak that there is some sort of a disconnect between the Pak army and the government. Anyone who becomes the prime minister after some time starts getting a feeling of an independent streak. And if you are selected, you have to follow his master's voice. You cannot display an independence streak. Now, when that happened, the government has to be pulled back. How else do you pull back the government except by embarrassing? Now, this guy came back. And look at the beautiful way Pak handled it. You banned them. You launched your police force into it. The Rangers and the army stood behind and watched the fun. The police force got battered. Those guys got kidnapped. I mean, it was a state of shame which had happened in Lahore, and the government in Islamabad could not control it. Now, you then went in and you had a discussion with somebody whom you banned as a terrorist organization. And then you agree to their demands to discuss the subject in Pakistan Senate. After having banned, lifted all the charges that you placed against them, released everybody, discussed the issue in Parliament, and you say they are still banned. So what are they banned for? If you agree to all their demands, doesn't make sense. The fact is, it has shown that the government cannot stand on its own.
Mm.
It has shown that the government cannot take a firm stance. Now, to further threaten the Pak government, the PDM broke, the People's Democratic Movement. The PPP moved out. Now, you notice that Bilawal Bhutto from the PPP is targeting Imran, but he is never targeting the army.
Mm.
Now, Imran is now being told there is a reliever for you ready. Okay, now this is one example of backtracking. Take the other one of Imran abusing the foreign, all his diplomats. Now, when you abuse the diplomats, you actually told your foreign minister you can't control your staff. Any foreign minister with basic amount of ego and basic amount of self-respect would have resigned that day.
Mm.
What happened? Today, as per the Pak's newspaper, he has retracted his comments. And he claims, no, they were not meant to be criticized. No, what are you doing? Are you actually the Prime Minister of a country? Or is your only job to make a comment today and pull back tomorrow? Is this how a nation's government runs? Forget about coming on the Indo-Pak issue of 370, that will be separate.
But there is one thing that what you're describing. One thing is saying you're saying that there is a replacement ready. Do you have any timelines in mind, sir?
Okay. Now, that is where the 370 issue will now like to come in, because that is how the whole system will now fall into place.
Hmm.
You see, for the last 2 years, since August 2019, I would say, from the time India abrogated Article 370, what happened? First action Imran Khan did, he refused to give permission for the new Indian High Commissioner to come into Pakistan, to come to Islamabad. He withdrew his guy from Delhi. We've downgraded things. Wherever he's spoken, whether it's the UN in 2019, 2020 UN, Qureshi has spoken in 400 places. As late as February this year, or even you could say yesterday or today in that same statement, unless Article 370 is not brought back, we will not talk. Now, Qureshi changed that statement, and that discussion of his came on Pak Sama TV a day before the move to Riyadh.
Yeah.
Evidently, it would have been demanded. But within Pak, when you are crying on one line for 2 years or 1.5 years, or 19 years, now suddenly you change track, who will accept? So now the government started getting under pressure from the opposition. Less than a month back, they were to procure sugar and cotton from India. They said, we defer it till the time you don't bring back Article 370. What has that got to do with trade? Now, you've got to remember one thing. The India policy from Pakistan is not determined by Islamabad. It is determined by GHQ Rawalpindi. The High Commissioner in Delhi does not report to Qureshi or Islamabad. He reports to Rawalpindi. Clear. Now, if they are going to determine the foreign policy towards India, it means all decisions to India are going to be taken by Bajwa.
Hmm.
Now you look at the back channel talks. Bajwa himself has admitted that the back channel talks were between the ISI chief and a rep of Dover.
No.
Okay. Otherwise, talks have been going on between the ISI heads or whoever is there nominated from among the top in the ISI and RAW, intelligence people. Right? So that means who's involved? The Pak army is
I mean,
involved. The Pak government is nowhere in the talks. But they are jumping on Article 370 because there's nothing else. What was Bajwa's statement? He says, we're not bothered about Article 370. It has nothing to do. All we want are two issues, which we know is correct. Which we know is correct is that statehood should be restored in JNK, which the government has said we will do it the moment we settle things, we'll restore statehood. They have no crib on statehood. And they said we don't want a demographic change. There is no demographic change which is happening. They have not said we want Ladakh to be a part of JNK. They just said we want JNK to be restored into the state. That has been Bajwa's sentence. Now, if this is Bajwa's statement, can Qureshi's words or Imran Khan jumping make any difference? Now, there is a change in the Indian policy, which has actually made this more interesting, is India never used to engage with the Pak army. Historically, we've engaged with the Pak government because we've always felt as a democratic nation, we must deal with your counterpart in a democratic government. Whether he's been a military dictator like Musharraf or whether he's been an elected prime minister like Nawaz Sharif or anyone else. Now, currently, after the failure with Nawaz Sharif in 2015, a realization came in that let us now discuss with the true holders of power in Pakistan, which is the army. They determine the policy to India. So you want to talk to Nawaz, the army will not let you go through. They are the ones who determine the policy. So let's go. Now, the other fact you've got to realize that every international dignitary does photo ops in Islamabad and true discussions in Rawalpindi. Why do you think friend Bajwa went to Riyadh even before Imran? He set the pace. He is the one who determined what will be done. Anyone, whether he is an ambassador, whether he is any level of international dignitary, will visit Rawalpindi. Why? Because that is the seat of power. So when India decided to engage with the seat of power, you ignored the polity. Today, if you think Qureshi saying Article 370 or Imran saying Article 370 has no value because they're not going to get involved with talks. Now, this is where your question comes. When you come to talks, if Imran and Qureshi are indicating a firm stand of 370, it means they have to be replaced. If for the semblance purpose, any agreement has to be signed between political parties. It has to be approved by the Pak military, but signed between political leaders, which is why I say photo ops take place in Islamabad and main discussions take place in Rawalpindi. Now, if this guy is insisting on this, automatically the times will have to come. The other reason why it's going to hit more is because he's got to reinstate high commissioners. Can you reinstate high commissioners without restoration of Article 370 if that is the reason why you removed them? So Imran may not. Take another link. Why is India silent? We're not commenting on SM Qureshi or Imran Khan's comments. We're not. Because we know where the main discussions are. We know where the decisions are being taken. And we also are aware, that is in my personal opinion, that Bajwa will ensure a correct time change. and get the right guy in who has no qualms to what is happening, because he never made these comments.
Hmm.
And now with the PDM comprising of two parties, the only one who's free is whom? Bilawal Bhutto and the PPP. I mean, it has to be a logical flow. When does this happen? When, as the talks start getting serious.
Hmm.
Okay, the ceasefire has been holding. And if Bajwa's announced it in an iftar party that this is what it is, and he's even criticized the Pak government for having turned down the offer of purchasing sugar and cotton,
Yes.
he is actually conveying a strong message. Right? How will he do it or engineer it is not difficult, because there are enough crime cases against any of these guys.
Hmm.
एक बार TLP और खड़ा हो जाएगा, if not TLP, there'll be somebody else who'll stand up. That is not difficult, but things have to move towards a particular stage. When and how they progress, where the blocks that exist are handled, is when things will move. So it's tough to lay down a timeline, but definitely with a government on this stance, there is bound to be a change.
That's interesting, sir. So one thing that one can realize by what you're saying, that the Indian effort to actually deal with a civilian government probably might have miffed the Pakistani army too many times. Listen, where your neighbors, you know where the real, source of power is. Why are you talking there? You talk here. So it's
No, you see,
probably a
not exactly that. There are two, three things which somewhere or the other there's been a slight change within the Pak army leadership.
hmm,
Number one is, if there is peace with India, you automatically do not need the defense budget you have, neither side. You may not need the same force structure you have with either side. For India as a democracy doesn't make a substitute for defense. But if you lose that force structure, can you still regain your control over the country? If you don't have that defense budget, can you still regain your control over the country? Today, the Pak army is in a position to do whatever it wants, whether it's grabbing corner plots, whether it's buying Papa John pizza outlets, whether it's anything and everything. It's because you have projected yourself as the sole saviors of the country against a country which is seeking to break you into bits. That is what Pak has been teaching its youth.
hmm,
Right? So the moment you talk of Pak army anywhere on social media, you see the kind of repercussions that you get.
yeah.
Okay, it's the same with us, there's no doubt. But the fact remains that ours is not for any other reason like this. It's because we always come to the aid of the nation at the first time. Okay, and it's only Pak which has twisted its entire history from 47, 48 all the way till now and converted every defeat into victory. That's to save the standing in prestige. So Pak army never wanted to lose that control and the hold. So whenever the polity went in for talks, you always found a terrorist strike or something happening which derailed the talks.
Hmm.
Whether it was Mumbai, whether it was Kargil, you name it. And now recently it was Pathankot after that. But we also hesitated in going to the Pak army, which today we do. Now that is a total change in scenario on both sides. The fact that both are engaging, the fact that both sides are showing maturity and both sides are showing a desire to move forward. You will not find a single comment from the Foreign Affairs Ministry on any of these stupid remarks by Qureshi or Imran, because that is the sort of maturity that we're showing. Bajwa never gave an open interview. He wanted it to be leaked. That's why when you speak to about 20 odd journalists, you don't expect all 20 to keep their mouth shut. But it is not a formal interview. He can't be quoted. He said it. So the leaks have come out.
Hmm.
The message has been conveyed to India, to their own polity, and to their people that the Pak army wants peace. Now, the stumbling block is what? The stumbling block is who's the next Pak army chief.
Correct.
It's next year, October, the present guy goes.
Hmm.
Now, the present DG ISI will be among the top senior most guys in the chair. And he is the man who is leading the discussions. Hopefully, if he comes in, there'll be a full continuation. Okay, so this is, when you start linking the dots.
No, it's interesting, sir, because at the end of it, I'm glad this is probably the first time we're doing the smart thing with Pakistan, right, rather than doing the right thing. We've always been stuck doing the right thing, but not the smart thing, wherein we are able to actually uh, figure out who actually runs the country and make sure that we deal with them. I guess somewhere down the line, the fear was that we might just recognize the Pak armies to say that, these are the guys who are the actual rulers of Pakistan.
See, the other fear within the Indian government was that if you start discussing with the Pak army, you might be, trying to incite your own army to repeat their policy of coups, which is stupidity, but that had been a mental block within the Indian government for decades, which is why you kept lowering the standing of the Indian army only to keep it away from governance. Absolutely stupid viewpoint, but it was, in fact, people like me have been writing for years, and why are we wasting time talking to Islamabad? Islamabad can do nothing. He can't even sneeze on India without sanction from Rawalpindi.
And if he does, you can see what really happens.
Now, today you look at Afghanistan. Do you think when the Afghan president comes to Pakistan, he does a photo op in Islamabad? He, as a president of Afghanistan, will go and sit down in Rawalpindi and discuss. It is not that the army chief comes to meet him. You see, the line is clear. Any visitor from the US, UK, anyone, he heads to Islamabad. Sorry, and after about an hour meeting here and there, formality, a cup of tea, he's sitting in Rawalpindi. That is where all discussions are held. So it was a fact known to us. But we said if we're going to engage with the Pak army, we will give the Indian army greater importance. And it might encourage them to follow a similar pattern, which is absolutely childishness in the minds of quite a lot of our politicians.
Stupidity, sir. So, but one thing I think is going to come around, and it's a question that one begs to answer. What and why what are the reasons that the Pakistani army now is changing its foot? Because as you mentioned yourself, that if there is peace with India, the standing for the Pakistani army itself comes down. So why would they want to?
Today they've learned the art of the elections, manipulating the elections. The Pak election, the orders within the country is that army personnel will be deployed in every booth, inside the booths. One. They've now created these organizations like the TLP and the works where they can use whatever pressure they want. Third, Afghanistan is going to go into the doldrums the moment the US pulls out. It's heading for a civil war. And all those who think that the Taliban will take over Kabul is going to take a long time.
Yeah.
Because the Afghan army is now fairly strong enough to fight as compared to last time. Even last time, it took the militias 3 years to capture Kabul. And Taliban came in 4 years later, when Pak launched it because the militias refused to listen to Pak. Now it's going to take that much time. The only power of the Taliban is IEDs and roadside bombs and suicide bombers and whatever. But these are not battle-winning factors. They only enhance public anger against them. They impose caution. So it's going to take some time. As long as that happens, the refugee influx and the current rate of killings along the Pak-Afghan border where Pak soldiers are being killed is only adding to concern. If they've got to control that belt, they need to thin out from there. The Pak economy is sinking. At some stage, the answer is going to come on the army. How much more can you borrow? At some stage, you've got to repay. How long more can you? I mean, what else is left for you to give other than a major asset? You may have to, at some stage, hand over Karachi to China or something. at the rate at which they're heading into trouble. So how do you manage with it? And the fact is, neither can you take Kashmir. As long as you keep needling India, India's got the thing got Kashmir well under control. Nothing much happening. You try and push in, you're losing people. The retaliation is getting worse. So what are you gaining at the end of the day? At the end of the day, is go in for talks, come down for some sort of whatever flows out of the talks is a very different ballgame. But look at what you're looking at there. So you look to control this end, at least you can handle the others.
Hmm.
You can't let both sides carry on and internal anger, everything building up. How much can you handle?
Different situation, sir. So, the last time we had spoken, as a matter of fact, we took up the Pakistani backing, especially the international fundraising that was happening towards the whole issue that took place in Delhi, and both the Pakistani favorite K words, Kashmir and Khalistan, at that time were pretty high on the charter. We see the entire environment has changed within 6 to 7 months. Um, Pakistan, I'm sure, knew their financial situation at that time as well. Was that a last straw? चल यार खत्म होने से पहले एक बारी और try कर लेते हैं. Was that, or is it just the factor that even the army or the ISI has a certain rogue element which is going to continue with this terrorism and with all the other things that they do, the asymmetric warfare that they are up against?
There is a rogue element within the Pak ISI. There is no doubt about it. There are many within the Pak army itself who are aligned to these militant groups, who are supporters there. You found that during the TLP agitation also. So you have that existing. The fact is that the other factor is that Pakistan also knows that Khalistan is only a drama term. Khalistan can never happen. There is no reality. And they can never succeed or come anywhere. But yes, when the situation began building up, it was an occasion for you to enhance the Khalistan feeling amongst the local population, which you could exploit at some stage in the future. So that is what they were playing. Now, if you look at the current announcement by Bajwa, by saying that 370 is not an issue, he has dumped everything that was being discussed before. Hurriyat is a party to the talks. Valley political parties talking of reinstatement of 370. And here Bajwa says 370 is not an issue. So the head of actually Pakistan has dumped all those within India who thought he would come to their aid. Because they've now come down to a realistic policy, or you could say realpolitik now, to handle issues further rather than go back onto those niggling ones of trying to push terrorism, trying to raise Khalistan bogey, trying to do all these things. They've now come down to a very realistic stand. Look, let's try and resolve it. Let's look at neighbors. You help us grow, which is the best that you can do for us.
They're asking us for a favor.
And you might find that favor unofficially may possibly come down. Let's see when the FATF meets next month. What will be India's stand? We've got to see.
But with the situation that how it opened out against Europe and the whole sanction that is going to come down on Pakistan's neck, their economy seems to have taken a tumble, and that's one of the reasons why we see suddenly Imran Khan, rushing off after, of course, the army chief's visit to Saudi Arabia. A lot of they call it a win, but we all know what he went there to collect, and we all know what he has been given by Saudi Arabia: 400 tons of rice, which was actually come from Pakistan.
And in addition is about, I think, $527 million aid for a collection of projects. But all of these are at 2% or 3% interest, so none of them are free.
Yeah. So it's again another loan that our friend went to get. Probably his last assignment, if you finish this off, I'll let you stay for another 6 months, or
Let's see.
But sir,
as to how he moves.
Yeah, my larger question in this entire thing, sir, why would Saudi Arabia now come down and play ball with him?
a lot of changes happening even in the Asian region. The US is pulling out.
Mm.
Right. Now, with the US pulling out, or the major support that Saudi had from the US is now gone, mainly because of the policies of Biden towards human rights, the Khashoggi issue, all of those are happening now. So you are now looking at now settling your own area by yourself rather than banking on US support like it was during Trump. So you find Saudi and Iran having quiet talks in Iraq, Saudi Pak slowly getting back, Saudi Qatar issue being resolved. Now here suddenly there's a spurt between between Israel and the Palestinians. Now the UAE, which has signed a diplomatic agreement with Israel, is now caught in a bind. So you're looking to resolve those. So there is a whole system changing within the region, and possibly you might find the US now coming back into the Iran oil deal.
Mm.
So if that happens, the pressure on Iran reduces. And Biden is not pro-Israel. So that issue will come up again because during Obama's time, Netanyahu had played very hell during the last months of Obama's time. So now Biden was there then, and he's not on that way pro-Israel. So now the pressure is going to build there. So there's a lot of change happening there. And it's to handle this change that you suddenly find, nations getting back slowly and bit. But one thing more that I would say possibly, I mean, it's, if you look at the joint statement issued at the end of Imran's visit, there's no mention on India's Kashmir policy. There's no mention on support to Kashmir, on the Kashmir issue. There is nothing. It's only the support talks between India and Pakistan to resolve outstanding issues, including Jammu and Kashmir. Worded that way, a world of a change. In all probability, he got a beautiful message conveyed through India, from India, through Saudi Arabia to Pak. So the message is sunk, and let's see.
I
Time will
was
tell in the future.
I was watching the news this afternoon, and although this was not part of the questions that I had prepared for you, but Imran Khan suddenly popped up on the news and he was saying, the West is trying to play India against China, and India doesn't know that, what it's going to head into and stuff like that. So my question to you is not about India, China. My question to you is in a very, very simple way. Has Imran Khan now come to a point where he's just speaking whatever comes to his mind because he's literally, the military connection has been broken? So that's one of the reasons why the name Mr. U-turn, and actually you've mentioned it in one or two of your blogs, Mr. U-turn, is coming up because he's wavering from one extreme to the other and then back to the, probably north, south, east, west every day. So he's been told, probably, as you say, not to talk about Kashmir. Here he comes up with the China issue and he comments on it. Is it that he's just trying to be important right now? Has there been a complete breakdown of communication between these two? What do you read out of this, sir?
For a person who can say Germany and Japan are neighbors, you can expect anything. You can expect anything because, I mean, I don't know the way he's been talking and the way he's been commenting and the way his own people have been countering, even on his own comments of it's a flu, ghabrana nahi hai. I mean, it's well known. So I would say let that ranting go through. There's no point even wasting time commenting on it
So it's
because
exactly what I thought.
it actually has no value.
Hmm.
It would have had value if, I mean, if say like when Bajwa spoke, it had value. Now with him and Qureshi speaking, they're actually speaking to only defend. So for him, what difference does it make whether India is acting against China? Is India acting against Pakistan? Does it make a difference? You will not find any comment or any counter comment to this coming from the Foreign Affairs Minister. It's not even worth commenting on.
It just shows you the kind of breakdown that has happened between the half power center here or one fourth of a power center here and the 2/7
It's
of the
actually
power.
it's sad because you see when you're dealing with a neighbor, you want to have a strong, stable government with whom you can interact.
Hmm.
If the political government is unstable, you have to find someone stable enough to interact. And then you have to turn towards the army because that is the only stable organization in the country. It's sad that when you have to deal with the neighbor, you have to deal at slow.
So my last question to you, what would be your advice to the policymakers today or whoever is having these back channel talks as General Bajwa puts it out? Because nobody in India has, as a matter of fact, come out and said anything for that matter. The official tagline in India is still at the point wherein ceasefire ho gaya, that's it. There are no talks as far the official this thing is concerned. There is, yeah, minor meetings, this, that, but nobody is officially coming down and saying anything. What would be your advice to the people handling this issue today, sir?
I think what they're doing today is the best. Until there is something tangible, what's the point?
Hmm.
Because if there is something tangible, something worthwhile, something which is going to take you forward, that is the time you come up. Like until you came to the ceasefire, nobody even knew what was happening. So why unnecessarily jump the gun and make announcements and then backtrack? I mean, we're
True.
not Pakistan, which will do a U-turn at breakneck speeds. So it's best let these things progress.
Hmm.
Come to a point where you've got a tangible output. Then announce it at the appropriate level. And only bring in the polity into the system once you've been able to hammer all the nuts and bolts and create a right scenario for it to be taken forward. There is no need to rush. I mean, the two nations are not going to run anywhere. We have the time.
Hmm.
The Pak army is stable as long as the next chief continues on the same lines. The Indian governments will continue with what has been said. You're not going to backtrack. So get stability, move stage by stage, and only announce once something tangible is there.
I think that's very sane advice, sir. Looking at Pakistan and the amount of variables that are there in the equation of India and Pakistan, as you mentioned in one of your answers, there is a small rogue element, not maybe small, but there is a rogue element within the Pakistani army that will not be happy with the loss of probably the chest thumping rhetoric that they had all this while. Um, it's a I think so. Personally, I mean, I've read a lot of people who've given their opinions on this thing. Pretty much everybody said up Pakistan toot jayega and this and that. Thank you so much for not mentioning that because that is, I guess, such an old rhetoric. Because at the end of it, if I personally
No nation will no nation will let a part break off so easily.
exactly yes,
You can't.
exactly, and it'll
It
be
has
a
to be a very, very major uprising for something like that to happen. I mean, it's not, somewhere like Czechoslovakia or something which had to split up into parts. It can't happen like it doesn't.
So thank you so much for not getting that up. And I think you've kept it in such a realistic way, which will be very interesting for people to find out because there's a huge amount of dots all around the place, but people who are not of a strategic bent of mind are not going to be able to connect it. But I think you've done that very, very well, sir. So thank you so much for
Thank
this
you, Adi.
talk. And I
Thank
shall
you.
catch you for our next discussion on the alleged, I'm going to use that word for now, use of biological weapons by China. Thank you, sir, and Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.